The story begins after thrusting her blade at the last enemy. Lan Xin asked where was Sun Ran, which Care replied she did know. Bai Tingxuan then arrived and informed them that she saw Sun Ran leaving the residence. Lan Xin was worried for Sun Ran's safety, but Sun Ran appeared, bringing another vampire he caught while it was trying to report back to his faction. Throwing the vampire on the ground, Sun Ran asked how many of them were there and who was their leader. The vampire declared he would not reveal the truth and betray his master. Lan Xin then informed Sun Ran that the vampire was low level and must have signed a blood contract, making it impossible to get any information. Sun Ran told Bai Tingxuan to extract the vampire's blood essence and kick him out of the game. The vampire was confused about what game they were talking about. Soon, a talisman was pasted on its forehead, and the next second, the vampire erupted in flames. After the vampire dissolved into ashes, his blood essence was extracted into a bottle for Sun Ran to use. Later, Care was curious about the use of the vampire's blood essence, but Sun Ran only told her that she would find out in the future. Knowing that there would not be any more vampires coming to disturb them, Sun Ran decided to make real weapons with the gray stone in front of him. Lan Xin told him that the weapons he made were fine against the vampire. She wondered how weapons forged alchemically would look like, so Sun Ran told her to check it out. He started refining a level ceramic alloy as the protocore for making weapons. The ceramic alloy was revealed. Care stabbed it with her sword, but it broke upon contact. Like a phantom, Sun Ran's hands started to assemble a weapon. He made a turbo crossbow and gave it to Lan Xin, making her excited to try her weapon out. The crossbow and bolts had a level data structure and could pierce through inch-thick steel plates meters away. The arrows were inscribed with level burn runes and would activate upon contact with the target's body, causing a small pyroblast. Considering the vampire count's strength, he would be blown to pieces on impact. Seeing the statue had exploded into smithereens, Care was excited to have a weapon of her own too. Soon, the sun rose on the horizon. Pastor Grass arrived at Sun Ran's place, which he invited inside without delay. Sun Ran greeted Pastor Grass and thought he came for the vampires last night. Sure enough, he told Sun Ran the vampires who barged in were not ordinary and asked if Sun Ran offended Duke Dracula recently. Sun Ran affirmed with a worried face. Knowing the devotees considered vampires as their enemies, Sun Ran could get their aid to deal with the vampires efficiently. Without hesitation, he asked for help, prompting Pastor Grass to lend his aid. He gave Sun Ran the Dagger of Original Sin, the weapon of the progenitor vampire, Cain. With a high-level enchanted weapon given to him by the game admin through Pastor Grass's hands, Sun Ran could now set off to hunt Dracula. In a forest, Sun Ran's party was on horseback on the way to the Duchy of Wallachia. However, they did not know where the enemy is. Sun Ran then thinks of a solution. He took out a demon-seeking compass he had made, and with its help, they find the vampire they are looking for within the duchy. They immediately proceeded. He then tells Lan Xin to ask where the other enforcer, Jinqi, is, and while he is at it, he grasps her leg, prompting her to pinch him. Her face turns red, telling him to keep his hand to himself. Meanwhile, Jinqi is hiding in the sewers beneath the city. The chief admin decides to contact him. He tells Jinqi to go with the Rose of Thorns for the assassination, but the man declines as he is used to operating solo. Helpless, the chief admin could only rely on Sun Ran's party. After knowing the situation, he wanted to infiltrate the city using invisibility talismans. However, she informs him that the life detection spell is set at the city gate, making the invisibility talisman only effective on their weapon. Eventually, he decides to split up and keep in contact using paper birds. On the way, they encountered a massive pile of dead bodies. Kilometer from the city, they went their ways. Sun Ran casually entered through the city gate. Once inside, he discovers the vampires had dominated the city. A bird flew toward his hand. It dissolves and a message appears, informing him of his wife's location. He enters an inn and Lan Xin could be seen sitting on the side. Once he paid for a room, the receptionist tells him to behave, otherwise, he would be impaled by the Duke. Afterward, he went to the second floor and finds a group of men with battered appearances. Lan Xin then points at Sun Ran, declaring she has taken a liking to him so he could sleep with her. Amidst the shocked gazes, he bowed and says it will be his honor. Later, they sat on the corner and discussed about Care's situation, who followed, a high-ranking vampire military official. He tells Bai Tingxuan to call her back since there is a probability of a trap to lure her. She agrees and sends a messenger bird. On the streets, a group of knights is searching all over the place for a suspicious person. He informs them that although Care is in trouble, she is not captured yet, otherwise, they would not search for her. He then asks them for the weapons which might draw suspicions. At this moment, the knights are climbing the stairs toward them. He tells Bai Tingxuan to act scared and to trust him. Right then, the door was kicked open. A group of knights entered and scanned the room. Walking around, they scolded Sun Ran for kissing in public and decides to go to another place to search. That night, the city was filled with soldiers roaming around the streets. In his room, his wives had already slept. Care then comes on top of him. She happily shows a bottle filled with the blood of the high-level vampire. He asks her if she encountered some trouble. She affirms and says she was about to act and ambush the vampire. However, Jinki suddenly appeared and attacked it. The vampire was no match for him, but reinforcements arrive quickly. They shoot arrows at Jinki. He was wounded, and although he escaped, the arrows are laced with poison and he will not get very far. After hearing the story, he tells her to sleep. A lively morning came. People are talking about the assassin who is captured and will now receive punishment. At the city gates, Care wakes up and asks what is going on. He answers that the assassin has been captured. Lan Xin wakes up and erupts in rage after hearing the news. On the bed, Care tells it was not her but Jinki. A crowd gathered around a raised platform. And there is Jinki, slumped on the ground with his hands tied with ropes. A vampire looks at him with a grin, and it urges Jinki to be filled with rage. Among the crowd, Sunran finally finds the enemy, Count Dracula. But he decides not to kill him since he has no evidence and it will be better if he kills the destroyer first. Right then, Jinki was brought toward a stake. Seeing this, the chief admin commands his assistant to kick him out of the game. In the game, he died out of fear. But Count Dracula did not care. He demands the execution of the dead. After Jinki's death, Sunran decides to search for the destroyer. Using the compass, he discovers the destroyer hiding outside the city. Later, they chose to revive Jinki to help them, but they need to recover his body from the spike first. Sunran takes on the task and tells them to hide behind a mountain. It did not take long and he recovers his corpse. After learning he was revived, she poked him with a stick. Right then, he sat upright and asks for clothes. But Sunran only has for girls. Jinki did not mind and with a hint of embarrassment, he asks for a weapon. Sunran immediately gave an enchanted dagger to him. Thereafter, they decided to go for the vampire destroyer. Jinki agrees and is determined to take his revenge. Later, they arrive at a cave. The game admin gave them the map but they could not scan the cave due to a thick layer of fog and concluded the possibility of traps inside. When entering the cave, Jinki takes the lead. They carefully walk on the path. Before arriving on a corner, he asks everyone to stop. A blanket of fire, activated by a flame rune, blazed relentlessly on the path ahead. Sunran leads the way, chants an ice shield to block the fire, and asks Lan Xin to shoot the fire runes. The ice shield activated, clearing the fire away. On the side, Lan Xin shoots with the crossbow. The arrow struck the rune, and the moment it exploded, they hide behind a cave wall. The path ahead is now clear. Jinki could only stare at Lan Xin's crossbow in envy. On the way, Sunran points at a large hall ahead and tells everyone to be careful. Once they enter the hall, they met a large entity. It was a destroyer golem. It raises its hand and asks everyone not to move. Care wonders what it was up to. It reveals to them that it knows their goal, and if they proceed ahead, they will be crushed to meat paste by traps, unable to be revived. And if they are lucky to break inside, he has already escaped by then. Care snorted and declares she would find it wherever it go. The golem retorts with a laugh and asks what they would do if he seeks refuge in the city where Duke Dracula reigns supreme. Hearing the words, Sunran wonders what it was up to. The golem wants a deal. They will let him complete the mission for the years of Dracula's remaining life, otherwise, the city will be massacred. In the game headquarters, the chief admin also hears the offer. He was enraged by the destroyer's arrogance for asking him to compromise. He decides to prepare for the divine punishment and obliterate the vampire once it appears. The destroyer quickly learns of the admin's plan and reveals divine punishment is ineffective because he wears protection gear. The chief admin halted the operation and contacts the enforcers. After talking for a while, Sunran reveals he is sure to defeat the enemy, and although Jinki finds it arrogant, he joins in for the sake of revenge. In the game, Sunran says he will back off. The golem laughs and suddenly, his expression changes after seeing Sunran's approach. He lightly taps the golem's chest with his staff. Magic circles materialize and the golem was frozen in place. Thereafter, he gains control of it and commands it to kneel. He then declares no one can escape and all the destroyers will be removed from the game. Now, Sunran had ownership of the golem. He commands it to make a path for them. The traps are triggered and they easily pass through. And now, not only do they have the golem's control, but they can also hear the destroyers' communication through it. They now know what are the destroyers' next plan. He then realized there are of them so he thinks they should split up. Jinki suggests dealing with the one in Targov East, but Sunran declines because there might be a mage and instead tells Jinki to go with Lan Xin to chase everyone who escapes. With that, both of them agreed with Sunran's arrangement. Later, Sunran's party arrives at a facility. He asks Bai Tingshuan to trace the destroyers. Silhouettes materialized before them and assume they were the destroyer who left a minute ago. In the corner, Care spots a hidden door, but Sunran quickly stops her from touching it and says it is a trap. He uses golden gaze and finds a large-scale explosive runic formation. And once someone opens it forcefully, everything will be reduced to ashes. Jinki is enraged at the thought of blowing up. Sunran then reveals he could decode the formation. In the game station, the chief admin was tense. He hurries everyone before the vampires left the cave and trigger the explosive formation. Controlling the formation, Sunran asks Bai Tingshuan to cast a cool breeze.
That's it for today. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.